What's going on, everyone? Bryce Gelman here today. I know it's a slight deviation from our normal programming of me screaming about New York sports, but with the NFL playoffs right around the corner, I figured what better time would it be to discuss some betting, some props with the prop queen herself, MLB Network, and also NBA TV betting host and analyst, Ariel Epstein, Syracuse graduate. It's an honor to have her on today. And without further ado, let's get right to it. Ariel, thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me. And of course, when you're a Syracuse person, we all just help each other out.
It's the new house mafia. I don't think anyone would understand that. Uh,
No.
no one would. All right, so we're gonna talk each game in depth. We'll give our picks and a prop bet potentially for each game. But I wanted to start with this. I wanted to go through all the odds to win the Super Bowl. You got the Lions at plus 320. You got the Chiefs at plus 370. Ravens, your Ravens at plus 550. Bills at plus 600. Eagles at plus 650. And then you got the Vikings at plus 1500. None of those other teams matter to me. Out of all those teams, is there any good value play in that? I'm not going to ask you straight up who you think is going to win out of those teams. We'll get to that at the end. But I want to ask you, is there one of those teams in there that you think, sits a good value right now?
So I actually do feel, and which book are you using so that we're on the same page?
FanDuel.
Okay,
so this is as of like 45 minutes ago. So things may have changed.
So I'm looking at their live odds right now at FanDuel. I really do believe that the winner of the Vikings-Rams game has a solid chance of going to the NFC Championship. I'm not saying Super Bowl, but the winner of that game on Monday night is probably your Cinderella team in the NFC.
Because so you're not high on the Lions.
Something's got to give. Like I'm not. The Lions are a team that I could see going either the Lions or the Eagles. I see going down. Like I don't think about it. When you watch the NFL, there is always a major upset each year, right? And the AFC may have I think the AFC is really strong and their divisional round is going to be where you see those upsets. But it wouldn't surprise me in the AFC if you get the Ravens versus Chiefs again as a rematch game. When it comes to the NFC, the Lions and Eagles are really good. I'm just not sold that the Lions get back. And there's no rhyme or reason to it, but I just see the NFC being that division, that conference where we're going to get a Cinderella team. Because look at what we've seen out of Sam Darnold and the Vikings. Would anyone have thought that? Absolutely not. The Rams, they've got all the experience in the world on that team, and they were getting healthy at the right time with wide receivers like Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua missing the beginning of the year and now enter full force into the postseason. The Rams are playing this like the Lakers do with LeBron, where they just the regular season, we know, it doesn't really matter. Just make it to the playoffs and we'll crush there. So I do see a playoff contender being your NFC rival to either the Lions or the Eagles, one of them, versus the Vikings or the Rams. So that's where I would put my value is in the NFC. I think there's going to be a big upset there.
I'm not. I'm very high on the Lions. I love the Lions. I'm a Giants fan first.
They can make the NFC. I said there's going to be one team, the Eagles or the Lions. One of them's going down.
But the winner of that game, likely will be playing the Lions the next week. So you're insinuating that you're not high on the Lions from what you're saying.
Not too high.
All right.
They peaked so soon. The same thing. They just peaked so early.
Well, we'll save this for the end when we discuss Super Bowl and all that good stuff. But let's get into it. I want to give you the odds for each of these underdogs to win this week. You got the Texans at plus 130, the Steelers at plus 440. This is all FanDuel Sportsbook as of 45 minutes ago. Broncos at plus 350, Packers at plus 194, Commanders at 138, and Rams at plus 100. Out of all those teams, they're all underdogs, obviously. Which of those teams do you think has the best chance to win this week?
Texans. I already bet the Texans. I like them plus 3. I put the Texans in a teaser with the Rams. So I got the Texans at plus 9, and then I got the Rams at plus 7.5 in the 2-team teaser. Lay minus 120, no more than that on teasers. Houston has the better defense, and they're the home dog. Houston also, even though everyone's talking about how the Texans went 3-2 to end their regular season, last 5 games, the 2 losses were to the Chiefs and the Ravens, 2 of the best teams in the AFC. Now you look at the Chargers. They have 11 wins. Good job. You know what their 2 of 11 wins were? 2 of their 11 wins were against playoff teams. That was it. Just 2 of their wins were against playoff teams. And those 2 wins were against their division rival, Denver, twice, where the last game came down to a possession, and they had to come back from behind to win that second game. It's also the Chargers' 3rd road game on straight, so that's really tough to do. Houston and their quarterback CJ Stroud, they had a really tough divisional round game last year against the Ravens. Learned from it. They kept that first half really close. Houston keeps this game close, and they're at home, and they probably win this game outright solely because, aside for the defense, and I love defenses, but think about the narrative all last week. If the Texans are smart, they are showing every single interview with players saying that this game matters because we want to play Houston. They didn't want to play Baltimore. They wanted to play Houston. Yeah. So when you're a home dog, that really just hits you hard.
There you go. I mean, so you kind of spoiled the next part of this because, of course, we're going to get into this game first. Every year the Texans play that they make the playoffs. They play at 4:30 on Saturday, and of course they're at 4:30 on Saturday this year. The line is plus 2.5 for the Texans. I think the Chargers are going to cover the minus 2.5. I don't know. I watched that game, and I had a lot of money riding on that game, fantasy implications, betting wise. How could you lose a game? What was it, 31-2 in that game? You're playing a really solid team, the Ravens, and there's no. I wouldn't say
that was also their first game. That was also their first game with essentially having to figure out their offense without one of their best wide receivers.
And also, I'll say this, and I made this argument with one of my friends. It was on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
When have any one of these players ever played it? Not necessarily just in high school and college. When have one of these players played a game on a Wednesday? So I think that could have factored into it as well. But you're putting up 2 points in a game. 2 points.
That was a few weeks ago already. They learned from it.
For you, a few weeks ago, you've seen all this year. CJ Stroud.
You can't take one game into account when there's a whole season too.
No, I completely understand. I just think you're underselling the talent that the Chargers have and how well coached they are.
I'm not saying that I'm underselling it. I'm saying that it's a bad spot.
Yeah, no. All right. So I got Chargers. You got Texans. We're going against each other on that one. The over under is set at 42.5. I have the over. What are your thoughts on
that? Let me see here. I didn't bet that, so it's kind of went out of my head. I thought I did have. Here we go. That total dropped by a point when it opened. It was 43.5. I saw it go to 42.5. To be honest, I don't really have a play on the total in this game because I already bet the spread. And I know that's such a sellout answer, but I don't like giving out information that I'm not the person that comes on a show and tells you every play that I'm asked. I will be completely honest and say no real feel, because the last thing I need is for people to say, oh, you said you liked the under. No, I decided I didn't bet it, but that's the way I leaned. I don't give that out. So no, I don't feel.
Well, you're emotionally invested in every pick that you take on air because you've actually bet it.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that's fair. That's okay. So next game, and this is the important game for you as a Ravens fan. You told me you're going to be there at the game, correct?
I'm so excited. I'm actually dropping. I don't know when this is going to be released, but tonight, Thursday night, I have a video. I surprised my brother with tickets because actually my brother and I have never been to a Ravens Steelers game. We've been to a million games, and we've never been to Ravens Steelers.
Wow.
My dad's going on vacation, and my grandma, who lives in Baltimore, she's going on vacation. Plus, it's supposed to snow on Saturday. So I kept telling my brother, it's just not feasible. We can't make it work. So all week, I was like, sorry, Brendan, we can't go. And finally, last night, I surprised him and told him that I was completely BSing him the whole time. I had the tickets.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, okay. So this game, it's plus, listen, it's minus 9.5 in favor of the Ravens here. And that shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. Is there any concern, this betting aside, as a Ravens fan, is there any concern going into this game from what we've seen in the past years? And of course, Lamar struggles besides a few weeks ago against the Steelers, but historically in his career against the Steelers.
Of course there's concern. Ravens Steelers games, no matter who's the quarterback, whether it was Big Ben, Joe Flacco, or Charlie Batch, it didn't matter. It was always a 1 to 2 point game in Ravens Steelers. You say no one's shocked. I was actually shocked the spread was so big because usually these are really, really close games. It's a playoff game in Baltimore. obviously gives the Ravens the edge, and they looked dominant. They still look dominant, but all it takes is one turnover, which the Steelers were doing a very good job of forcing the Ravens to turn the ball over by punching it out. You never want to play a division rival in the playoffs, especially with a veteran head coach like Mike Tomlin, who has done a really good job in Lamar Jackson's career of containing him. You look at Lamar Jackson and his rushing yards, it's not that great against the Steelers throughout his career. He's going to have to throw the football, or they're going to have to rely on Derrick Henry. Weather's not really going to be a factor. Snow's going to be gone by then. It's just supposed to snow in the morning. Wind's only about 10 miles an hour. So there really shouldn't be weather concerns. Just expecting Lamar to have to make plays in the pocket, and without his wide receiver, probably Zay Flowers.
So I could see where you're leaning here. I could see you're leaning Steelers plus 9.5. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people who think the Ravens will blow out the Steelers. When I say a lot of people, I mean sharp bettors who I really trust and would bet with. I will be betting props in this game. I already have futures that rely on this game, so that's the way I'm going to play it. But if I had to, I would tell anyone who has watched the Ravens as closely as I have and has watched the Ravens-Steelers rivalry since it began in the late 90s and early 2000s, these games are always close. Mike Tomlin's a really good coach, and it's going to take the Ravens forcing turnovers, which they just started doing in the last 3 weeks of the season. It's going to take them making the Steelers mess up. And I think the Ravens have a shot to win the game, of course. I mean, 2 10-in sets for them. It works out. They have Isaiah Likely. Mark Andrews is healthy. Rashad Bateman's been playing well towards the end of the season. They can make it work without Zay Flowers, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers, even if you go first half, if you take the Steelers first half, Steelers keep it close, because you saw what happened last week with the Ravens and the Browns. It was kind of close in the first half. And then the Ravens were like, okay, pedal to the metal, kick things off in the third quarter, and they started rolling from there. So maybe you go first half that the Steelers come out firing.
All right, so give me some props. You said you bet on some props in this game. Give me some props. Give me like 2 or 3 props.
The one I like the most is the Steelers wide receiver, George Pickens, over 25.5 yards for his longest reception. They kind of kept him quiet last week against Cincinnati. But when you look at Pickens' longest catches this year against the 4 teams that he faced that are bottom 10 against wide receivers, he's had 37, 21, 16, and 31. And Baltimore has allowed the 4th most receiving yards per game to wide receivers this year, just the last 4 weeks. Even the Giants, Wan'Dale Robinson had 25-yard catch. Calvin Austin had a 44-yard catch. Collins, 30. Jerry Jeudy, 30. So there's going to be a deep ball in this game of probably 20, like high 20s, early 30s. Like there's going to be a big catch somewhere, because there's always blown coverage by the Ravens secondary at some point in the game. Give it to the number 1 wide receiver, George Pickens.
That was going to be the prop that I was going to talk to you, but not that exact prop, but Pickens, because the idea that he played as poor as he did last week, going into this game against, as you mentioned,
against the Ravens.
Yeah, listen, if the Steelers have any chance in this game, it's going to rest on Pickens' shoulders. Last week, he just did not look like he was even into the game. It looked like it was shocking to me for someone who was as good as he is. He's going to have to show up in this week. I've got Steelers plus 9.5. We'll skip the over under. But yeah, I've got Steelers in that one. So let's move on to Broncos Bills. Broncos currently sit at plus 8.5, Bills minus 8.5. I like the Broncos. I like the plus 8.5. I think the Broncos are a better team than people are giving them credit for. I think they have a really solid defense. The Bills defense is atrocious. It's terrible. It is one of the worst defenses in the NFL. The Broncos keep games close. Plus 8.5 is a huge line. So I'm gonna go with the Broncos here. What are your thoughts on this one?
I'd go with the Broncos also. Plus, the sports books need the Broncos. And I actually left that out before. The sports books' biggest need of the week is the Texans, by the way. But I do like the Broncos for those same reasons. Better defense, should keep the game close. The Bills are at home, and it probably is going to be cold, but Denver's used to that. So I'm not going to take that into consideration. Bo Nix has been really good under center. The Bills, that's really all I have. I didn't bet this. I'm betting a lot more props because that's just the way that I roll.
So give us a prop queen.
But I would be betting. Here's the thing I tell people, though. So I asked my friend Steve Buchanan, who works for DraftKings, and he knows all their biggest needs. So he told me all the biggest needs of the week were Houston, Denver, Green Bay, and then the under in the Rams and Minnesota game. So the way I like to preface this to people is, that sports books always win in the long run. So if you want to be on the winning side, essentially by betting with the sports book, it might not win you every week, but it should win you in the long run because their building is much bigger than wherever the hell you live. So that's the way that I phrase, like, okay, if the book needs Denver plus 8.5, that's very good to know. It would be, I don't like in the playoffs laying that many points. Now in the regular season, in college football, you could lay points. In the playoffs, not a fan. So I wouldn't lay 8.5 with the Bills. What I do like with the Bills is go with either Khalil Shakir or Keon Coleman to go over their longest receptions also, because they're the two deep threats on the team. Actually, Coleman is the one that gets the most deep balls, which is 20 yards or more. But Shakir also is like your number one wide receiver, so why not utilize him in this kind of game where Denver has struggled against receivers this year? They're bottom 10. They rank 9th. And I looked at even Shakir's numbers. 2 of the 3 games where he's faced teams that struggle against wide receivers, he's gone over this number, 27 and 52. The other one was against Detroit. He had a long of 10, but then that went to Coleman. That's why I tell people you could look up what you want. Coleman has the most longest receptions on this team. But I was looking back at all these receivers. It was all since the beginning of November, every week but 1 week, Denver has allowed a catch for 20 or more yards against the receiver. So go and pick your poison, but I might go with Shakir because he's the number one, but Coleman does have a lot of good history against these teams.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting considering who Pat Surtain is going to be matched up against. Whoever he's matched up against is not going to do much in this game. Like, that's just, death taxes and Pat Surtain locking down the opposing team's best receiver. So it really is a pick your poison of who he's. Yeah. So in that case, you go Coleman. All right, let's move on here. Packers, Eagles. Eagles favored by 4.5 in this game. Of course, at home, Packers not been good against teams above 500 this year. So for that reason, I'm going to go Eagles minus 4.5 here. Your thoughts?
I'd agree with you on Eagles. The Eagles being at home, they're so dynamic. They had a week off extra because they didn't need to play. Then you look at Green Bay with Jordan Love, their quarterback, who's been playing with a hand injury recently. Green Bay also just lost one of their wide receivers. I think it was Christian Watson. Right? Yeah, he's out with the torn ACL. Not that he was doing that great this season. It was more like Wicks that was taking off in his spot, unlike last year. But still, injuries in Green Bay. The Eagles defense is playing super well. They really cleaned things up in the secondary, which is where they struggled last year. Their offense with Saquon, insanity. So I would go with the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is as clear cut as maybe we're making it out to be, because the Packers are a talented team on both defense and offense. They could reasonably win this game, but I think for both what we're saying and what we've seen in recent years, like just the Eagles,
one team is getting helped. One team's getting better as the year goes on, and the other is losing steam and getting hurt. I just don't trust the Packers. And I actually am going with the under 36.5 receiving yards for the Packers tight end Tucker Kraft. So when he's gone up against defenses that are really good at containing the middle of the field, especially teams that are really good at defending against tight ends, he's gone under 36.5 in 5 of 7 games. And when the Eagles were asked, their defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio, he said, why are you guys doing so well against tight ends this year? They are the best defense in the league this season against tight ends. He said, I just think it kind of worked out that way. No, like there's personnel, like come on. And they were asking Vic Fangio all season, oh, tight end game, like what is it? But I guess their linebackers are just so good that they can mix and match everybody in their linebacking core to all these tight ends. It's not just one person. It's been that linebacking core in general. So since November 1st, not including the last game against the Giants because that game didn't matter, opposing tight ends went under 37 receiving yards in 6 of 9 games. So, and like no one until mid-season even took off against them at all. I would take the under here on Tucker Kraft.
All right, so moving on, Commanders, Bucks. Bucks are -3. I like the Bucks at -3 in this game. I think rookie quarterback, this is going to be a different environment for him. Not to say that he can't rise to the occasion, can't put up unbelievable stats like he's done all year, Jaden Daniels. I just don't know. I'm going to go with the more seasoned vet in Baker Mayfield. What do you think here?
This one I can't get a read on, so I'm not going to give it out. I have the props, but I know I like stink. I'm not really known for like spreads and totals like my friend Kelly is, and she could give you all the sharp action, but I truthfully just don't. I understand what you say about the rookie quarterback. We saw it last year with CJ Stroud. It is really tough to play a playoff game as a rookie quarterback. At the same time, I don't know how much I trust Tampa Bay with the way that they've been finishing up the season. They basically, and they did win that last game of the year. They did not come out looking like a team that just had to win their division. They did not look like a team that was win or go home. The Bucs, it took until the last quarter to finally get it together. I am worried for the Bucs because Mike Evans is going to be paired, like he's not going to have the greatest matchup.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun game. I just don't have a real feel for it. But I should have looked up. I thought we were going to talk props, so I could have like given you all.
I wanted to view it all. I wanted to cover all our bases. I know you're the prop queen, but
my sharp friends are really you know what it is. I've really gotten really good with the props, but the spreads and totals, I still, as much as I could get my own feel, and there are times where I'm like, actually, I don't agree with my friends. I like this game.
Yeah.
I really have some good friends who have been gambling for 35 years, and they are super smart. They have been watching, and like they're friends, and I am too now, friends with people who run sports books. So now I learn all these different things about what the public doesn't see and why the book does what they do. Getting that information, even on a weekly basis from them, it's so eye-opening the way that they see the game differently than people who don't get it.
Yeah. No, I mean, and listen, I'm more of a prop guy too, but I figured we both get our thoughts and out there. Because I don't really do gambling content very often. I'm surrounded by it. I bet occasionally. The playoffs are when I come back out of hibernation. I
genius.
Throw all the money in because it's like during the year I'm too occupied with screaming at the TV because the Giants win meaningless games at the end of the year. Yeah. So I'm not necessarily as all jokes, but no, I mean, like I'll bet on a game that I go to or a game that I really think strongly about, but that's not so often these days.
I'll tell you this, from a personnel perspective, Washington has weapons that can really beat Tampa's defense. Tampa's defense took a shot the last couple of years. I mean, they were really good a few years ago, especially that Brady Super Bowl with Devin White and Levante David. Now, this defense struggles against pass-catching backs, where Washington's going to have a really good pass-catching back like Austin Eckler. They're not good against wide receivers. They're bottom 10 against them. They're bottom 10 against tight ends. So that defense is going to struggle against Scary Terry and Zach Ertz and Austin Eckler. And then, dynamic running game when you've got a pass-catching back and a versatile running back like Brian Robinson. Whereas on the other side, against this Denver defense that's played a lot better this year, I don't trust the offense so much. So, I said Denver. Tampa. The Tampa offense, I don't trust as much because their run game, it's okay. It's getting better. But they've been inconsistent. So Washington's defense has played a better year, and I trust their coaching. So I would side here with Washington.
All right, final game here, the closest spread this week. Vikings-Rams.
We didn't get the props in the game, though.
Oh, you want to do? Okay, we'll do props. Let's do some props on Commanders.
Okay.
I thought, my bad. That's my bad. What do you got for that
game? Scary Terry over his receiving yards, 58.5. When you look at how bad the Tampa defense has been, quarters are struggling. Their secondary's banged up. Big loss like Jordan Whitehead. He got in that automobile accident last week, so he's been on the IR. Everyone has a question mark next to their name against and the Tampa defense. So I like Scary Terry, number 1 wide receiver, gone over this in 5 of the last 6. The other one I like is Zach Ertz over his longest reception. When I was going game by game through Tampa's last few games, their tight ends against them, everyone had a big catch. Like everybody. I looked at the last few weeks. Juwan Johnson, Moore, Ferguson, Smart, Mayer, Tremble, Johnson. Everyone had a catch for 17 yards or more. And that was just since their bye week. So they're averaging 26 yards per longest catch, these tight ends against the Tampa D. Again, linebacker position has really taken a hit in Tampa Bay. go take Zach Ertz over his longest catch.
You might have sold me on that one more than anything else today. I think I don't know, I may have to take that. And I might have to give you a text if I lose. So Venmo request. All right, let's move on. Last game, Vikings, Rams, again, closest spread this week. I like the Rams plus 1.5. I just, from what we saw last week from Sam Darnold on the road, and again, the environment is not going to be at SoFi like it was at Ford Field in Detroit. I think Detroit has the best home field advantage remaining in the playoffs, even more than the Chiefs. Darnold just is Sam Darnold. At the end of the day, you could look at all the stats that he put up this year. He is still Sam Darnold. He's still that same quarterback that we saw earlier on in his career with the Jets, at the Patriots, where he's saying he's seeing ghosts. Well, he saw ghosts last week. And I don't know if that's going to be something he's going to be able to get over. He missed a bunch of wide open receivers. And again, that was the biggest game of his career. I like the Rams in this game. I really do. And I'm surprised that the Rams are not favored in this game. So what are your thoughts? And give me some props as well.
I teased the Rams with the Texans, as I said earlier. So I got the Rams at plus 7.5 and a 2-team teaser. The Rams also have potential to be displaced. Haven't really seen any updates on that yet, but with the LA fires, so there's
it's a good point.
Iffy news about if they have to play that game in a neutral site, or I forget how that would work, if they would go play in Arizona or if they would play. I don't think they'd play Minnesota. I think they might play in Arizona. But anyway, I saw a few different reports. Also, though, LA is playing with that whole like everything's happening in LA, like let's play for LA and all that heart. 1.5 is just such a short spread, but they have the playoff experience. They have the coach who knows. I mean, and then Matt Stafford's been in the playoffs so many times. Wide receivers are getting healthier. I just trust that unit as a whole, the Rams, to keep the game at least close. But again, I'm going to tease it to 7.5 and expect that this game stays within a touchdown. The sportsbooks need the under. So just putting that out there, that's the sportsbook need in this game. I like Minnesota's tight end TJ Hawkinson over his longest reception of 16.5 yards. And the reason I do a lot of longest reception this round is because a lot of these defenses, especially against a quarterback like Sam Darnold, a Bo Nix, you're going to get pressure up front. They're going to try to make him get the ball out of his hands quickly, and they're going to try to throw these guys off balance. And you've got defenses that are like the adrenaline rush. We're coming out strong. Like it's the first game of the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. So I get nervous with teams that are really good up front, and I like to apply pressure like the Rams. So I go towards longest reception because I don't want it to be an entire game of trusting someone's entire body of work. I just need one good big catch. So TJ Hawkinson over his longest reception of 16.5 yards. He is averaging 27 yards per longest catch in every game that he's played against teams that are bottom 10 against tight ends this year. And the Rams allow the 4th most receiving yards per game against tight ends, with them averaging just over 50 receiving yards a game since November 1st and it's just under 22 yards per longest reception since November 1st against this LA defense. So if you're going to get someone who is, let's say, not like Justin Jefferson, go with TJ Hawkinson over his longest catch.
All right, so we teased this at the start, but I want to talk Super Bowl favorites. And I know, again, you're prop queen, but I want to talk Super Bowl favorites. I want to talk your Ravens. And you had mentioned before to me that you've got some money on the Ravens. You took the Ravens as a Ravens fan? I'm assuming you did this before the season as a future?
Actually, when the Ravens went 0-2, I took the Ravens at 10-1 for just $100 to win the Super Bowl. I did it because I was like, this team is so much better than 0-2. Maybe it's just the Derrick Henry effect where they're getting him. Like, it's a new offense now that the Ravens had a really solid number 1 running back as opposed to running back by committee like they did last year with Gus Edwards or before J.K. Dobbins got hurt and Keaton Mitchell. Now the Ravens have a solid number 1. So that was a very different offensive scheme. And I knew it was going to take time. Then they lost their defensive coordinator. So when you lose your defensive coordinator, Mike McDaniel to the Seahawks, now you get Zach Orr, who's never been defensive coordinator before, and the defense looked terrible. I said, there's no way this team's that bad. Like, no way. Yeah. So 0-2, I put $100 on them, 10-1. So now a couple of weeks ago, I was like, okay, I'm going to have just $100 on my Ravens. No big deal. I don't want to worry about this. I start getting texts from all my sharp betting friends. just put more money on the Ravens AFC, just put more money on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I'm like, really? And they're like, Ariel, yeah, like, go do it. And I was like, all right, like, whatever, I'll go do it. So I realized, though, I didn't have money on them to win the AFC. So I did want that because it always is a good opportunity if they make it to the AFC and just don't win the Super Bowl. At least if they get to the Super Bowl, you're making something. So I put the money on the AFC and then a little bit more on them at plus 650. So I got plus 375 Ravens for the AFC and then plus 650 to win the Super Bowl. So I'll make a good amount of money if they win because truthfully, I don't see them. If they don't do it this year, it's a disaster next year. I just, like, you coming back for a second time, you could do, just remember 13 years ago, the Ravens missed a kick against the Patriots, wide left, Billy Cundiff. They climb back, go back to New England the next year, and end up getting to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl. It can't happen. Like, a third year in a row after losing, that's just misery. I would not expect them to be able to climb back out of that again next year. So it does feel like it has to be this year, at least to make it.
So I just wanted to point out, I did a video before the season, and my final prediction was Ravens over Lions. So we're in the same boat here, and both those teams are still alive. I saw a lot of people out there with the 49ers. They had the Bengals. I just want to say both my teams are still alive. If I think I'd have to amend it though. Like, from what I've seen from the Lions, I mean, listen, I'm gonna stick with my original prediction, but I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm feeling a little iffy on it because I think I'm way higher in the Lions than you are. I think, the one thing you could look at is the idea of, all right, they've lost half their defense or whatever. I just like the vibes. Like, strictly vibes purposes, I love the Lions. And I think that I don't know. I'm a little bit higher on them than you, but Ravens aside, if you didn't have the Ravens, what is another team that you think could win it all?
This is a good question. Are you looking at value or just a team without betting?
Both.
Oh, geez. Okay. I really think it's going to come down to Ravens-Chiefs AFC Championship game again. And
you really don't think the Bills are going to get there?
No. The Ravens would have to beat the Bills.
Yeah.
So, Ravens-Chiefs. Then, I'm telling you, I think it's Eagles versus either the Vikings or the Rams. So, my value play, my value play would be probably the Rams.
Oh, there you have it. Stafford goes back to Ford Field. He avenges his loss.
Imagine that narrative. Imagine the championship games. If you have, imagine the championship games that, like, I mean, and then Stafford goes back to Ford Field, beats the Lions, and then you've got that. Like, I just think the narrative would be awesome. So, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Jared Goff. Has been so good all year. The moments he's gonna mess up.
Come on. That would be disastrous. I just want to say,
be my long shot play.
Because that means, I mean, listen, the Eagles are going to beat the Rams. That's for sure. It's if the Lions lose, the Eagles are making the Super Bowl. I've never felt more sure of anything in my entire life. I know how the story goes.
On their shoulder. So,
yeah. And Saquon, how poetic would that be? As a Giants fan, watch me Saquon hoist the Lombardi Trophy. That's exactly what I want this year. Thank you for putting that image into my mind. No, but in all seriousness, thank you so much for joining me today. You could follow Ariel at Ariel Epstein, and of course the prop queen. You're the best, and great work you've been doing lately, and all the best going forward. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Bryce. Thanks for having me.